Well, hello and welcome back to my humble little channel, and a bit of a hiatus from doing videos. I've nothing worth videoing recently. I hope the noise of the dehumidifier is not too annoying. I might have to turn that off. I had a slight disaster. I had a leak. Well, not me personally, the roof did, and fortunately there was nothing sensitive underneath it, only the floor. So I've done a temporary repair. It's a felt roof. If that survives the winter, which I very much hope it will, I'll refelt it when the weather is good in the spring or summer. But it's not a job for this time of the year, doing a job like that. Anyway, what we have today is this little radio which I purchased recently, and it's how do you pronounce this? Quansheng UV K5. Okay. Now, do I really need another Chinese radio? I've got two of these UV5s, Baofeng, and I've got this one as well. This is another Baofeng, the GT3 TP, which is the high power version. Supposedly 8 watts, but in reality 6.5. Let me maybe turn off the dehumidifier. Okay, well that's a bit quieter for the time being. I can turn it on again later. It's dry today, so I mean it's still very high humidity outside, as it always is in this country this time of the year. Unless you get frost, of course, but even then it's not necessarily dry. But the story behind this little radio is, I'll turn it on just for something to do, and as you see, it came up with the battery voltage 8.4. So anyway, the story behind it was, over the last couple of months I've been listening to a fairly local repeater in Somerset, WR, GB3, WR, and the various people have been talking about these radios and how good they are for the money. More on that later. And how impressed basically they were with all the capabilities of the radio for the price. So I didn't do anything about it for a while. I dithered, as is typical of me. I was checking on the website, which is AliExpress, and I've only dealt with them once before, but that's when I bought my electronic load over there, and they were very good and fast, and I didn't get screwed for import duty or VAT that time. Anyway, so I was dithering when looking at the price, which seems to vary day to day. Sometimes it's one price, then it'll go up, then it'll go down, depending on the time of day and the weather. So I finally decided I'd buy it, and it was unbelievably priced at £8.50, free delivery, plus taxes, whatever that means. Well, you find out later what that means. Basically, you have to pay VAT to the UK government on it when it comes in. Well, AliExpress paid the VAT, it's included in the final price. So all in all, it came out at a magnificent price of just over £10, which is utterly amazing how they can do that, do the radio for that price, when you consider they've got to ship it from China, and they've got to pay a courier in this country to deliver it. How do they do it? How do they make any profit on them? But it is what it is, and excellent service. They promised 5-day delivery, and it came in 5 days exactly, I think. So what do you get with it? If you do that bit next, put that over there. We have a box. You get a little manual, which is actually not too bad at all. The translation is pretty good, really, compared to other ones I've had. There's one funny bit in here. Getting a bit closer. If you find bad smell or smog, please turn off the radio immediately. Well, does that refer to your general environment? So in theory then you shouldn't use the radio if there's a bad smell, or if somebody's burning something when there's fog around. But I get the general idea. If the radio is about to self-destruct, you shouldn't be using it. But apart from that, I think the manual is very, very good. And of course you can download it as well, but I just prefer to read off a paper copy. And it's got no less than 51 menu options. Now I'm used to the Baofangs having, I think, 30 something menu options, but it's a bit over the top having 51, most of which you're probably never going to use. And it did take me a while to go through them all, but it's very, very much like the Baofang menus. So if you use one of those, it's not hard at all. And you don't get much else with it, which is okay. You get the base charger with a nasty 2-pin plug on it, which is slightly annoying, but it's not really a problem because I can cut it off and stick a proper mains plug on it. It's a bit bent as well, but whatever. That seems to work nicely. That you didn't get with it, that's one of mine, that's an adapter. And you get belt clip, which is fine, and strap, that's it. On the Baofangs used to get a speaker microphone, but that was fairly horrible, so not worth bothering with. So here we have the radio, and I think it's got a nicer display. If I put one of these on, turn that on again, you can see, I think it's a bigger display and it's probably clearer. The only slight annoyance that I can see is, well, one thing is that the light only stays on for 5 seconds, and you can choose 1 to 5 seconds. I think I would have preferred if it stayed on a little bit longer, or maybe sort of gradually dimmed down over a period of about maybe 10 seconds. I don't know. That's a minor thing. The other annoying issue I thought was that when you have it in frequency mode like that, the characters are quite large. But once you've programmed it, and the memories that is, that's VFO on the bottom display, and that's memories on the top. But once you've programmed the memory names for the various repeaters or whatever, they tend to be a lot smaller, but I guess that is so you can probably get more characters in. Just a slight minor annoyance. And I believe there is software on Quansheng's website to program these radios, but I haven't bothered with that. I've used Chirp, which is a well-known program for programming Chinese radios and possibly other radios. Very good, and it worked fine. I had no problems programming it at all. In fact, I just copied and pasted basically the memories off this one, so that was fairly straightforward once you get the hang of it. Other slight annoyances are that on the old Baofangs you've got a VFO memory button dedicated there, and also A and B, which switches between the top channels and the bottom ones, if you see what I mean. So you've got dedicated buttons to do that. That's VFO mode, and back to memory mode. And so, but on this one it's not quite so straightforward. You have to, in order to change from the top VFO or memory to the bottom one, you have to do function, which is down there, and AB to switch it, and you see the arrow move down. So it's an extra step which I find slightly annoying, but not a major issue. So I do that again and it goes up back to that one. And again with the VFO memory, it's very similar. Well, it's exactly the same function, and then it goes into VFO mode. And the F3 means it's the third band in its range of coverage, because it's got a wide band receive and a restricted transmit on it. I mean, basically it goes from a, I can't remember exactly, but 136 to, let's look in here. Transmitting. This is 144, 148, that's not right. It does go a lot further. Here we go, 136 to 174 on the VHF transmit, and then in various bands 400, 470 and 350 to 400. Okay. And as for receive, where's receive? Now this differs to, I can't find the receive specifications. Here we are. Yeah. Unlike the Baofangs, this one goes a lot lower in frequency. Goes from 50 to 76. Then it does FM band, wide FM 76, 108. And then it does basically receiving all the way up to 600. Yeah, it goes all the way up to 600 on receive megahertz. And the people on the repeater that I was listening to, they're talking about hacking it. There are ways to hack it. There are ways to hack this radio, which I'm not going to be too interested in doing. Apparently you can make it transmit on lower frequencies like 6 meters, 50 megahertz, and also on 4 meters, 70. But I think you're running a bit of a risk there with the fact that it's not really designed to work on transmit at those frequencies, and the filtering would be probably very poor, low pass filtering. So I think they were talking about a couple of watts on those frequencies. So there's a sign that something's not working very well, because it should be 5 watts normally. And there's also a risk of damaging the power output of a transistor module, whatever it is, I would say. So I'm not going to get into hacking it. I don't want to be bothered with any of that. And what else can we do? Again, using the function buttons, which you didn't have to do on that other one. You can change the power. On the moment it's got H for high power, and the dash means negative offset repeater shift, and the N means narrow deviation, which is what I've got it set to at the moment. But you can do a reverse repeater to listen on the input, so I have to do function for that, then number 8 R, and that goes to the input of the repeater if you want to listen on the input. And that would be a 1 button push on the Baofangs, but not on this one. Not a major issue. Same with power. I've got to press that one, and then it goes to low, and then again to... Why doesn't it do that? Right, let's get out of... I remember... No. Function. Medium. That's at last. It worked. Now I'm in medium power. Again, back to high power. Okay, that works fine. And you can do the same thing on the bottom display, which is in VFO mode, as I said. Now if you're in VFO mode, you go up and down in frequency in your selected frequency steps, which most commonly in this country would be 12.5 kilohertz. That's what it's set to do. But you can set it from anything from, I think, 6.25 kilohertz up to 25 in various different steps. So that's all good. Back to memory mode. And then of course you can go through the memories like that, stepping through them. And you can also make it scan. I make it scan by pressing the scan button. It's now scanning, and it will stop when it hears something, and when the signal goes away there'll be a short delay, and then it'll continue to scan again. And exit to stop that. That seems all okay. The big button here is to get into the menu. First one is squelch. Got it set to level 1. More on that later. I think the squelch is too high even on level 1. I'll show you that later. And the step size 12.5, transmit power high, and all sorts of other rubbish we won't get into. I'm not here to go for every possible menu setting. Okay, on the side of course we've got PTT, as you would normally have. Function buttons, can't see these are much use apart from the top one, which is squelch defeat. That is quite useful. The other ones, things like torch, you know, things you're not going to really have much interest in doing. There is some suspicion of being able to change these button functions, but I don't know a way of doing that. It does say you can do it, but I think you need to download some sort of software or firmware to do that. I must say I don't like the buttons. They don't feel very nice. They're sort of just the same as these clicky buttons. Not very nice to feel. But it is what it is. What do you expect for the money? Not quite sure I like the orange volume, minor thing. Don't know what that's supposed to be. Just protects the, so you don't knock it by mistake, I guess. On this side you've got the various connections for speaker, microphone, and also that's where you plug in your programming cable when you're programming the radio using software. And interesting, below that we have, which is something which is not available on the Baofangs, we have a USB-C charging socket, which I thought would be ideal. Wouldn't have to use this thing, but in the manual it says really that's only to be used in emergencies. I think what they're implying by that is it will be very slow to charge using the USB socket, and I haven't run it flat yet properly, so I don't know how long it would take. So they say recommend that you use this all the time. But you know, thinking about it, you're going to get 5 volts going in there, and the battery is 7.4 lithium ion, so they must have some sort of step up converter built in on that to charge it through the USB. What else can I say about it? The antenna seems remarkably good. It seems at least as good, if not better than this one I've got. It came with the GT3 TP, and infinitely better than what you get with the UV5. This is just utterly hopeless, apart from it works reasonably well on UHF. VHF is 20 dBs down probably on this thing, maybe, who knows. Let me think about things and see what else I need to do next. Yes, the other nice thing about this Quansheng is the fact that you have mic gain on it. You can set the mic gain between 1 and 4, because these Baofangs are notorious for having low audio output on transmit, which is why most people use them in wide deviation mode. So I've modified this one to have a higher output from the mic. There is a mod you can do using the Vox transistor as an extra amplifier stage, and that worked quite well. Done it on that one over there as well. So that is, but it's a tricky mod to do. I wouldn't advise it unless you're used to surface mount working. So it's a massive improvement to have a mic gain control, which I've set to the highest, which is level 4, and I think you need it on level 4. And I've got it in narrow deviation, but it may need to go into wide. Even so, I haven't actually spoke to anybody on it yet. I've just been playing with it, getting acquainted with it. But I mean, if I transmit on this one to this one, I don't know if that wiped out the camera, but it might have done. That was quite loud anyway. If I do the reverse, it seems quite quiet, but it's not a very scientific test, because I probably haven't got the volume control set as high on either of them. So it remains to be seen whether you need to put this into wide deviation like you would on this one. I'd have to talk to somebody, see what they thought. But the advantage of having it in narrow mode is that you get slightly better receive sensitivity because the receive filter is also narrower, so you get better signal to noise basically on weak signals. So that's a good reason to have it narrow. So I just want to check this, see if I've wiped myself out by transmitting. Okay, now I just think I need to do a few measurements, and we'll start off with frequency accuracy. So we'll use the Oracle today because it's got nice red LED 7 segments. So radio set to 145 exactly, and I've got an aerial antenna plugged in, transmitting. I think that's pretty bloody impressive. That's registering down to 1 hertz, is it? I can't work that out. Yeah, it is. The end digit is 1 hertz, and the camera, as usual, doesn't want to stay where I put it. But you can't do better than that, can you? And I know the counter's very accurate because it's locked to the GPS DO. So that's perfect. More than adequate. Very, very good. So the next thing I want to do is check its, turn the counter off now. I want to check the receive sensitivity. I think it'll be quite impressive. So what I'm doing is signal generator set to 145.6 minus 100 dBm, which is 2.24 microvolts. Back to dBm, and that's 2.5 kilohertz deviation. So minus 100 is no problem. I go down, that's minus 110, minus 120, pretty impressive. Drops out at minus 124 dBm. If I do squelch defeat though, you can still hear it. So I'd say that squelch needs to go a bit lower if possible. But there's nothing you can do about that. That's the way it is. I'm on my lowest squelch setting. I can go even lower in signal. That's your limit really, that's minus 130, which is 70 nanovolts. So there you go. It's got a very, very sensitive receiver. Not always a good thing, having too sensitive a receiver. And that's the other thing I like about this radio. These are equally sensitive. In fact, I have tremendous problems with them on UHF. If I try to monitor a UHF repeater, I get constant breakthrough from other low power devices which are on 433.9ish, and basically the selectivity is so poor on the Baofangs. Anything and everything will wipe out the radio or cause you spurious reception. But testing this one on the antenna on UHF on the local repeater 2 miles away, which nobody ever uses. I had it monitoring for an hour or so. I never heard a spurious signal once, so I think they've improved the selectivity on this particular one, which is really good, because it used to do my bloody head in having this thing squeaking all the time. You know, every few seconds it would squeak or make a horrible noise because of maybe my wireless weather station, and also got a wireless thermometer. Then there's all the key fobs that people have for cars. So quite impressive that was. Power test. Let's do a power test next. See if it really is what it says it is. It's supposed to be 5 watts. Doesn't say what it is on medium and low power though. So we'll check that. We can check it on VHF and UHF. Oh, just before the power test, we'll just check it on UHF sensitivity. 433 megahertz. And now I'm on minus 125 dBm. With the squelch, that's a squelch on there, minus 130. So it's equally sensitive on UHF as it is on VHF. Okay, that's fine. Enough of that. Let's measure its power output. Okay, a bit of a technical problem, but I've got things back working, I think. Camera had a malfunction. But I want to do the power measurement on 145 megahertz first of all. In order to do that, I have the radio connected to 30 dB power attenuator, because I do not want to blow up my power sensor, which is only rated at 100 milliwatts. So what we'll do is we'll look up here when I can get things stable at my adjuvant power meter, which I think is fairly accurate, and I put a 30 dB offset in and it's set to measure watts. So let's transmit and see what happens. 3.8 watts. Ooh, it's a bit disappointing, isn't it? It's fairly disappointing. It's supposed to be 5. Ooh, I'm not sure I'm very impressed with that. And what I'm going to do is let's try one of these other radios. If I can unscrew this one, which is not easy. Right, let's try the GT3TP, which is supposed to be, well, I think it's around 6.5 normally. So just screwing that one in, as you do. Right. That's interesting. That's also only 4 watts. What am I doing wrong then? I don't know. Let me reconfigure. I think the battery's a bit flat on this one, but using this one, Bofang, a UV5 I mean, measure that one then. 4.9, which is what I'd expect. So at the risk of going on a bit too long, let's plug back in the Quansheng. All the screwing takes a bit of time. Right, back on the Quansheng again. No, it's the best it's going to do. So it's not even 5 watts, is it? It's not even as high powered output as the UV5 is. That's somewhat disappointing. You know, that's the difference between 4 and 5 watts. It's about 2 dB. Bit of a shame, really. Okay, well, let's try on UHF then. Okay, that's, I've got to reconfigure the power meter. $430, that'll do. Try on there. 4.2. Basically 4 watts on UHF. Oh well, that's the way it goes. Can't be helped, but that's the best it can manage. I'm a bit surprised at that. Thought it would at least be as good as a Bayer fan. Never mind. Is what it is. Still a lot more than the first 2-meter radio I had, handheld, which cost considerably more than this did, which was only a 1.5 watt radio. That was the IC2E, which cost me about £159. Okay, I think the final test would be to take it up the garden and see if I can get into the repeater in Somerset. I have to go up the garden because it's the highest point in the garden, and it would be quite impressive because that repeater is nearly 40 miles away, and I'll go up the garden if it's not raining. I suppose I'd better test it on medium and low power. Turn that off again. Turn the dehumidifier off. So switch it to low power first. 2 watts. 2.3 watts. Okay. And medium 2.7 watts. That's not much point, is there? Why don't they have 1 watt for low, maybe 2 watts for medium? Anyway, it is what it is. I'm not going to test it on UHF. That'll do for now. Well, we're up the garden and it is almost raining, as you'd expect, so let's try this radio before I get too wet. G6BPC testing access WR. Well, that worked, didn't it? That worked quite well. That's fairly impressive considering that repeater's nearly 40 miles away. And now it's raining heavily again. I'm going to have to get inside. Anyway, let's walk down the garden. Thank you for watching, and any questions, let me know in the comments. Anything else you want to know about this radio, I'll try and do something else about it. So bye for now.